So what do we say, right? It's a learning process, and this is a continuation of it. So bear with me as I kind of line this up for you the best I can. And this won't be like a tutorial because we do that on Patreon. So if you're interested in that, Patreon link is in the description. I'll probably end up talking about the Patreon a couple of times throughout the video. I apologize if it's obnoxious. It's just sometimes it's the only way to convey the information. So this right here, I can't stress enough how important this is, what I'm doing right here. And this has been part of the biggest sort of learning process of the entire diorama series I've been doing, specifically for Transformers. A few with Marvel Legends, even a few with Star Wars have proved that I could have spent a little bit more time right here. But overall, definitely can't stress the importance of it in regard to Transformers. So this is the building process, but more specifically, the layout process, figuring out exactly where the shelf is going to be. And when I say that, people kind of roll their eyes and don't understand what I'm saying. But I mean, like, the way that you are going to display stuff, it's going to be different if it's on the top shelf, the middle shelf, or the bottom shelf. You're going to get a different bang for your buck depending on which shelf it's on, how you lay the figures out. Making sure that the figures aren't crowded, that they have their own space, but that there's also vertical layers that allow for smaller figures to get a little bit of more height or bigger figures to kind of get up a bit, whatever the case may be, in order for you to get a larger and wider view of the stuff that you spent hundreds of dollars on. Side note, my wife and I were having a conversation in the basement recently and like just going through shelves and just like, you know, what amount of money was spent on this shelf, right? And like sometimes, I mean, even with the Marvel Legends, it was like $300. You know what I mean? Like $400. And then to imagine them not being displayed with any sort of pride behind it, it's kind of it's disappointing that I let it go so long, honestly. So these background plates I do find to be pretty important. It kind of sells the environment. And it's just like anything else. The more you do them, the better you get. And I'm getting to a point where I'm kind of comfortable doing them. And then I lay in paints over top for the mountains. But and that's my baby. But yeah, it's one of those things where I've also had to learn about like color palette. You know, so on this shelf, I got red characters, blue characters, orange characters, green characters, pink characters, like those sorts of bright, vibrant, loud colors. So in the background, foreground, a lot of grays, a little bit of blues, but a lot of grays, a little bit of greens. And once again, it's just tying things together of making something not look too busy, making an environment look realistic for them to live in, and also simultaneously making them pop out from that environment, all the while having the proper amount of display space within that environment and room within that environment, and knowing what else you're going to put in there. So like, I don't plan on putting any other toys in this shelf. You know, like this shelf is complete. So, you know, like that's important to me. Anyway, I've mentioned before, because a lot of people always say like, well, what about the Ark and the Nemesis? Like, you'll never see me do that. I don't have any interest in doing that. I don't have any interest in making these things look more cartoony. I like the real world environments. I specifically like the Earth environments. However, I have taken some risks outside of that recently that have paid off. But to give you a little bit of background, I did this diorama and then I've done 2 more Transformers dioramas since, and I've been happy with all of them, which is a good thing because I haven't always felt that way about the Transformers stuff. And I'm getting to a point where I've learned enough where I kind of know what it is I want, how I want it, and how to make it happen. You know, like how to create something that is visually interesting, all the while displays the figures and works well with the color palette and works well with the perspective of where you're going to be looking at the shelf. I did a Spider-Man diorama not too long ago of a New York City rooftop, and it's one of my better dioramas. I'm really proud of it. And yet you can't see a lot of it because it's on the top shelf, and most people who aren't ungodly tall Can't really take it all in, so to speak. So it doesn't really work. My wife helps me a lot with the basing of this stuff. Like, I hate basing. I hate any kind of mundane work. So my wife does a lot of the basing of the paints, and then I come in and do the detail stuff, whether it be washing, dry brushing, kind of whatever. I started doing this other thing where I'm kind of like dotting almost, but neither here nor there. Flicking paint sometimes, airbrushing, whatever the case may be. I love to do that kind of stuff. I just hate the kind of mundane stuff. So my wife does that, and it really helps. The time consuming thing with this is letting the paint dry. So the washes specifically, and the base coats, letting them dry. I'll also say, like, every time I do these, I get comments every now and then that'll say, like, you know, I wish I had the talent. I wish I had this. And it's not a matter of skill. I mean, it's a matter of skill. It's not a matter of natural born ability or talent. It's a matter of learning skill, learning technique, and getting better at a craft, and allowing yourself to kind of, you know, create some environments. And it can be taught, it can be learned, and you know, you don't need to be Picasso to start doing it. Now we're moving on to the dry brushing. I mean, the airbrushing phase of some of this stuff. I always get excited when I start to get close to getting a section of it done that I can, like, take off and just throw in the shelf. It just feels so good to have it, like, you know, like I completed that. I can get that off of the kitchen table and into the shelf. It's just like, I don't know. It's like crossing off something that you did on your to-do list almost, if I don't drop it all over the place, which it looks like I'm doing. And this is why my fingers look all dirty in some of the reviews as well. So, yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think about other things that stood out with this one. I remember I put Lookout Mountain, like the actual orange bit in there. It's like an Easter egg at the end. I meant to do it all the while, but I kind of forgot about it. This is the sign, the don't cross this point sign, or whatever it says. And yes, we all paint together. And it's this one didn't turn out quite as well. This is the one thing that didn't quite work. And I can always just take it out of there. It's removable, but I wanted it to really be that odd to the movie that, you know, where Hot Rod and Cup kind of or smashed through it, or at least Hot Rod, right? Yeah, Hot Rod. And the lettering works pretty well. The checkers worked pretty well. The one thing that didn't work all that well was the stop, the actual word stop, because I had to kind of freehand that, and yeah, it just didn't work. And that's painter's tape there to try to get and I'll tell you, I don't have the best painter's tape either, so I'm always ripping paint off of it. But I'm also like, notoriously impatient, so I always, like, you know, like, oh, let's just get it done. I want to get it done. So that doesn't help. Yeah, and you'll see me try to work this out, and if you know anything about me, you know that numbers is not my strong suit either. So trying to work out some of the math of this stuff is not always the best for me. Look, forgive our math. So even I wasn't the only one messing it up. You see? It's our kids, it's our math, etc. Share everything, right? Yeah. And I'll tell you what the challenge is becoming now of kind of moving on, and I'm working on another Transformers diorama as we speak, is creating different environments, like having all the shelves look unique in their own right. You know, like I have the Ark environment with from the outside, you know, with the caverns, the cave and stuff. For my Autobots, I have an abandoned city for the Dinobots from that one episode with the meteor they struck. I have, I'm trying to think, the Lincoln Memorial, of course, and the dam, and the, I'm trying to think what else I've shown. And then the highway with the Stunticons. So, like, it's a matter of, like, you know, creating new and fresh environments. And, like, this one that I'm working on now is kind of similar to another one that I've already done, but I feel like you need it. Like, if you do Transformers, I'll tell you what it is. It's like the classic kind of like desert canyon area. And, like, I just feel like if you do Transformers, you've got to have at least one of those. So that's what I'm working on now. But, like, you know, I'm like, even if these characters were never in these environments, like if they were never in the snow or whatever, like, should I make a snow background just because it's something different to look at? I don't know. but something that's been challenging, like a beach or whatever, desert maybe. But anyway, as we begin to wrap this up, there it is, finished with my white lights. This is before I get the yellow lights in, which you'll see here in a bit. But, you know, there it is. Not too shabby. And there it is. Finished, all lit up with the proper lighting in it. And it turned out nice. Not too many figures, just enough. I'll try to get in there a little tight, so to speak. But, yeah, like I said, learning process continues, and really nailing kind of the layout kind of before you start building. I just can't stress how important that is, because I've made that error now multiple times. So yeah, I'm not mad at this. In fact, it's one of my favorites. I think it feels like the film, and yet it doesn't feel cartoony. So there it is. It's nice to be happy with something you make. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Until next time, take care.